Some of the best advice that I can give is reconsider the industry and figure out how you're actually targeting the different companies and potentially the individuals within these companies because everybody and their mom is using job boards. There's lots of different tactics and ways to get there. One of the things that I'm often perplexed by is how people end up in the career field that they've chose. And I, from my own experience, definitely was not exposed to enough different jobs, enough different careers. And in many cases, the exposure comes from what we see on social media, movies, television, and maybe real life, family, friends, neighbors, maybe some travel and direct experiences. But how would we know that other things are available unless either somebody told us or we actively went out and started looking? This is what is called the mere exposure effect. If you grew up around doctors, artists, teachers, or entrepreneurs, those careers may feel more familiar, comfortable, and attractive simply because you've seen them more. Who selected our career field, anyways? In a modern day, it's so interesting to come across developers and people that were ingrained with this idea of you can't do what you love, you can't just get a degree in anything, you need to go into some form of computer science, be a developer. And with AI now disrupting so many different industries, but also many different vocations, you have people that are reevaluating saying, damn, I got this really impressive degree, but I'm not able to get a job. And I've been trying to find one for months, if not years after graduation. So, what industries are you actually curious about? And I think there's always an interesting overlap of what you've done and what you want to do. And there's lots of different ways to explore these areas, and often it boils down to way too many choices. And I think when we're trying to hit everything, we manage to hit nothing. So I've created a couple of different resources here. We will end up going into this one when we actually do the one of two activities at the very end of this, which is basically just a massive list of different industry categories. The goal of building this list is to quite simply start to select the ones that either are interesting because they elicit something out of us, or we're just really curious about understanding more about that space. And sometimes industries, when they overlap, there's kind of this unique explosion of opportunities. And I definitely think that's cool. The other side of this, I have already given access consistently to a lot of things, but it's basically inside of the resource section of this. There's just a few different kind of career opportunities from the standpoint of looking at what industries are predicted to be massive over the coming year, 5 years, decade, and so on, and a number of different resources. If you're still like, this isn't really helping me, great. There's endless stuff that we can go into. This was a list that I scraped and managed to enrich and put together of all of the different types of software tools that exist. Um, it's massive. It's alphabetical. I don't know if that's super helpful, but basically, if there's anything in here that even sparks some curiosity, there's probably two or three companies doing it. There's one industry leader and a couple of challenger brands. And if those are things that you find really cool, then go nuts. Like, that's what this is all about. Additionally, there's the career archetypes and roles. There's a huge targeting section on job titles in case you're curious about what other job titles are kind of one iteration away of from what you're already doing. And then the motivations and personality tests, which you've already seen in nearly the first module. So crazy amounts of information here, but value nonetheless in terms of exploring potential opportunities. I think the real circumstances that are at play here is not all opportunities are obvious. A lot of companies need your help. And if you knew how to find the ones that were either desperate or in dire need of some infusion of either great ideas, great execution, or just all around an extra few sets of hands, then it would make narrowing your job search a heck of a lot easier. And they don't know that you exist. They don't know how to find you. So we have to go find them first. If the expectation is everybody's going to know that we're awesome, um, I think we're kidding ourselves. So we have to find people before they start posting on job boards. To bring in a little external validation, I wanted to cite a few different examples of what unsexy industries look like and why aiming for something a little more narrow but less competitive is probably advantageous for people that are struggling to get into to an industry where they feel like they're compensated very fairly. So this video talks about unsexy industries that are not at the same degree of competition that you would see with whether it's AI companies or the creative industries. And this guy, while he does have some controversial takes, Scott Galloway, I think, means well and says a lot of the things that a lot of people may be thinking but aren't willing to say out loud. It's worth a watch. Check it out. On that same note, I used to watch a ton of these videos. It was a show called Dirty Jobs. It was on the Discovery Channel before it was rebranded Discovery. But now Mike Rowe has his own YouTube channel where he basically just highlights more or less the same thing he did in his show, but he's his own production force. Really interesting stuff. You can also watch a lot of the old episodes, and it's crazy to see a lot of these characters that, there's a pig farmer somewhere just outside of Las Vegas that makes millions of dollars a year by basically repurposing a bunch of buffet food into pig feed that then he's able to monetize and make a ton of crazy good money. So it's a long way to go to say that there are lots of opportunities out there. You really just have to start narrowing and looking at different avenues, and maybe the most competitive areas is not where you want to be. So, as I alluded to earlier, job boards are definitely too late. Sometimes I wouldn't say all the time, but that's where you're going to be entering the same opportunity at the exact same time in the process as everybody else. I always want to try to find a way to either skip the line or get out in front of this so I'm the first person that potentially would be considered for this awesome opportunity. And there's a few different ways that we can do that, but we need to be able to find it early. Timing is really everything with this. When you find jobs before the job ad is posted, it means that they're not inundated with a bunch of other choices that obviously aren't you. And when you're looking at potentially the average number of applicants per job is over 100, you have to be the best out of 100, which is really frustrating. And maybe some people just know how to put together resumes really well, or others interview really well, but you might be able to do the job exponentially better or exceptionally better. So we need to start considering how do we find the types of companies that we want to work for. And I've used this expression a few times throughout this course, but we need to start discovering spark moments. And I'm going to go through a bunch of different ways and examples of that, but there are plenty of ways to find employers before they actually post the job, but know that they are ready to go on a hiring spree. And then it's a matter of just engaging with these types of decision makers and companies directly, hopefully with people directly in the form of the people that are doing the hiring. So there's three core elements that usually take place in every single hire. Every opportunity has a need. The company needs the problem to be solved because they have a problem or they have an excess of issues that need to be mitigated very quickly. They have a need. Then they have money. Nobody is really trying to work for free. If you're entry level, dude, you got to get in there and get some experience on the resume and build a bit of a professional portfolio. But most of us are probably looking for jobs that pay money. And if a company doesn't have money, then it's probably not in our best interest, and they're probably not going to be putting out a lot of job postings. And then timing. So, is this a priority that they fix this problem that they need to fix right now? If the priority is now, they have money to spend, and they're clearly demonstrating a need in order to grow or fix a problem or solve a solution, whatever the case is, then they're probably hiring for that. This is exactly what occurs in the job posting sequence. So before a job hits the actual job boards, they describe basically, well, what type of person do we need? Do we actually need this role? Do we have the money? And is this something that's important to us to get in the door right now? If it's yes, yes, and yes, in all likelihood, they're going to confirm, they're going to end up building something in the way of a job description. They'll review it, and then they'll add it to their applicant tracking system, and then they publish the job. So know that if you can find companies that have those three things, we're in a pretty good spot. There are many different ways to discover companies that exist on lists, directories, platforms that are considered searchable, even social media platforms. There's manual searches, there's B2B tools. I'm going to show all of these, but there are so many different ways. And I think people just kind of get into their own rut and don't realize that there's so much available to you. A lot of the future work that we're going to do remaining in this course is directly related to discovering and engaging with companies. So it is a huge part of everything that really kind of goes into the remainder of this course and also a big portion of your job search. So I've broken down the job boards. We've already seen these. I've hit a number of different ways of discovering companies. That includes funding announcements, that includes the discovery B2B tools. We will dig super deep into some of those. That includes some of the directory sites. And I'm just quickly going to cover these because I've linked to them in the slides, but I haven't really explained all of these different things. And I think it is helpful. So, from a high level standpoint, this is basically lists of companies as somebody has put it together. Is it perfect? Absolutely not. I would always recommend using B2B SaaS companies that allow you to do a lot more filtering than just, oh, I put together a list of the best or the top or um, I don't know, number one. I mean, there's so many different adverbs that just don't make sense there. Then I have a lot of interesting tools that allow you to find companies. It's almost more specifically startups, but there are a ton of companies that exist on a local level. So the hub is the local hiring platform, but also they have a listing version where you can kind of filter and browse. So I'm just going to quickly show what that looks like. So I can see by the Nordics which companies are in here. I can then further filter. I'm a blockchain kind of guy. Hey, 65. I doubt that. But there are companies, and then I could dig into the specific ones and say, well, this seems pretty interesting. And oh, it looks like they are actually hiring, or oh, looks like they just got funding, or oh, maybe it's just enough for me to be like, I got to reach out to these guys. There are so many different versions of that. If you're not familiar with Angel.co, it was rebranded to Wellfound, and it's a unique platform for discovery. They're a more free version of what you would find in, let's say, Crunchbase, which allows you to immediately go in and either see the featured companies, which usually are companies that have done something really well, or they're potentially lists or whatever. So there's lots of different opportunities to really find some cool stuff here, even though this isn't my immediate go-to. I think there's a lot of really cool projects that you can find within other websites like PitchBook, Traction, Gust, and Startup Blink. The problem with many of these is that they are paid solutions that ultimately nobody's got money to really throw around. We're talking like $2, $3, $500 a month. Not doing that. I will show how I go through and check out recently funded startups, which is a huge win. And this is GeekWire. Every time I check back, there is a recent announcement on here, which is fantastic. And then, of course, if you're looking for stuff specifically within crypto, then that's there for you. Lots of value within this, not the traditional route that everybody takes in order to find stuff. The best way that I think you should be spending your time discovering companies that are, let's say, mid-market, small to medium-sized companies, usually over 100 or at least over 50 people, is going to be using tools like Apollo, other B2B SaaS tools. I have gone through a monstrous, crazy long list of B2B, that means business to business discovery tools, and found the ones that have a freemium availability, meaning anybody can get in and play with it. And they also give you a certain amount of credits. Not every B2B, business to business SaaS tool does that. So, broken down by the number of credits that you get either monthly or potentially annually, they're here. They are trying to get people to use their platform in the hopes that maybe they enjoy it so much they'll use it in a more long term situation, in a payment kind of situation. So I will break down exactly how we use Apollo and how I use the search filters. You are given upwards of, I believe it's 250 total credits. There is a crazy amount of value in that. We're going to use that pretty exponentially or pretty significantly throughout this course, the remainder of it at least. So first, we're going to do a activity where we try to separate out some of the target industries by selecting ones that are either making us wonder, like, that seems interesting, or it's just so niche, or like, damn, there's got to be something cool there. That sounds wild. Then after we do that, we're going to start building our raw company list. A raw company list is basically the companies that we want to immediately reach out to. just because they haven't posted a job doesn't mean that they're not hiring. And I think there's a lot of value packed into that. So I want to break those down, run through those, especially the second one, this one, in a fast build type of format, so you have the ability to endlessly find opportunities that are not advertised, that are not even on the job boards yet. Let's do it. I hope this makes a lot of sense. Please just try to work your way through the activities. I promise some of these tools can be a bit daunting, but once you get the hang of it, it becomes like second nature.